Okay.
Okay, great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. This is the August 13th, 2021 Electrical Workers Examining Board meeting being held by a Zoom webinar. I'd like to ask each board member to acknowledge their attendance as I call your name. Peter Jennings.
Here.
Rich Bird.
Here.
John Youssef.
Here.
Paul Costello.
Here.
Chris Brown.
Here.
And Jackie Larrabee is not attending today. My understanding is she's presently in Washington State hiking.
She did email saying she wasn't attending. Yep.
What was that?
I said she did email saying that she was not attending.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. First order of business today is the approval of the minutes of our May 7th meeting, which was submitted by Karen to all the board members. Trust everybody's had an opportunity to review that. Can I get a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
I will second the motion.
Okay, Mr. Byrd first and John Youssef second. Any discussion on the motion? Any corrections, modifications? Hearing none. All in favor of approval of the minutes of May 7th?
Aye.
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 Let the record show that everybody acknowledged them and raised their hand accordingly. Comments or concerns of any person present today? I believe Al Caroselli is online.
Yeah. Yes,
Mr.
Al, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here now. Thank you.
Good morning, Al.
Good morning.
Is there a specific item on our agenda you want to talk to when we get to it, or you just got some other comments?
No, quite honestly, I just wanted to kind of be a part and just see what's going on in the future. So I'm just here to watch, not really to say anything or interact.
Okay, so you're there for informational purposes only, no criticism, so forth.
Well, I have criticism of my own for myself, but not of the board, obviously.
Okay, all right, well, welcome to the board meeting, Al. Glad to have you here. Next item on the agenda, and I see Janita is here, assuming she will be addressing the quarterly complaint status report that was recently mailed to everybody, emailed to everyone. Is that right, Janita? Or
yes,
Pam?
sir, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to everybody.
And good morning, Pamela Brown. I'm here as well.
Morning, Pamela. I took a look at the report myself when you sent it out, and I have one question. Other than that, maybe two. There were in the middle, which is number looks like 5 and 6.
Yes, sir, there are two listings for it. I don't exactly know why the report did that, but there were two files, sir.
Okay.
One was Mr. Munas's for our side with his electrical E1. And then there was, if you notice in the resolve section, I said this is related home improvement contractor file number 2020-180, which the consumer information rep closed because the company does have a home improvement contractor registration, and the complaint center closed it as a civil matter for the consumer to go against the HIC registration number for a civil matter. However, in my dealings with the E1 and the company, I was able to get the consumer a $600 credit. He is an E1, and I resolved it that way. So, but I still don't know why the system itself pulled it in twice the way it did.
Okay, so the bottom line is that the consumer has been
The consu-
satisfied with the results.
Yes, and they have an E1
Okay,
in the solar company and properly licensed Journey people under him.
okay, great, super.
And you said you had a second question, sir?
Well, I kind of do. I think I kind of know the answer, but looking at the first one, where the resolution is a civil matter, and actually any of these that the resolution is indicated as a civil matter, they were all properly licensed people, so there is no need for action on the part of the department, from what I understand looking at this. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
When it says dispute of fact, civil matter, properly licensed, case closed, the inspector has investigated the company based on the allegations submitted by the consumer. A lot of times what happens is the consumer thinks there's that fund and DCP is going to dip into that fund and get them money back because they're fighting with the contractor over billing because they found somebody or somebody's neighbor or somebody's unlicensed, unregistered nephew could have come in and done the work cheaper, and they want money back, or they're claiming it's incomplete and it's a workmanship issue. We look at it, we contact the building departments to see, A, was the permit pulled? B, were there code violations provided by the building official? And there's not. We get the response from the contractor, copies of the licenses of the employees. And then we look at it versus what's on the contract or invoice. That usually is what we get from our side, is invoices or estimates or such. And we look at that as the license number listed on the document. Did they get their permit? Were there code violations? Are they licensed? Are the employees they sent licensed or registered apprentices? And at the end of the day, if it ends up being a billing thing and they dispute what the consumer's saying, the consumer's saying, oh, no, I want money back. Well, that's a civil court matter. That's not us.
Okay,
And so we send a letter, a closure letter to the consumer, which instructs them to either go to small claims court or to Superior Court. That letter sometimes has a link for them so that they know what they're doing. So we just don't close it out. We send them to the next step, the next level, which is going to court.
great.
And we also send them a copy of whatever response that the respondent contractor sends in as well. So they get the letter saying you got to go to court, and they get a copy of the response from the contractor.
Okay, great. That sounds good. And my last question is on the third item, where the respondent paid $1,000 AVC for failure to obtain a permit prior to commencing work. Two questions. Did he actually ultimately obtain a permit, and what was roughly what was the scope of work?
It's quite frankly, Mr. Chairman, I would need to go look into that.
Okay.
But I do believe, I can't answer because I would have to look at the file to see what the notes are from the inspector. Did my good friend go and get his permit? And the scope of the work, I think, was an upgrade and other electrical work. but I would have to go back and look at it.
Okay.
I also believe that Mr. Ingalls is also turning over day-to-day operations of his company to the young lady who's the contractor of record, who is also an E1 in his company. But again, I have to go and look at that.
This young lady is the contractor of record or will be?
She's also an E1 in his company.
Okay.
So I would have to go back and look at it. He owns, his number is out there everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
All right. I just want to make sure. I'm sure I would think they would have made sure he got the permit, and that's fine. That's fine. He seemed to be somewhat of a frequent flyer of ours at times. So that's why I was wondering.
yeah, no, actually, it's been 2 or 3 years since we've had something on him, but in the past, yes, for sure.
I just think yeah. So hopefully that'll change with the change in management, apparently. All right, that's all. That's the only questions I have on this. Again, I thank you for the report. Any questions by any of the board members on any of the inspections?
I was just wondering on the first one, has he come before us before? For some reason, the name was familiar and I don't know whether it's.
No, I don't believe so, Mr. Jennings.
Okay.
Perhaps just seeing it on the monthly or quarterly report. You might have seen the name before.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, great. All right, Janita, thank you very much for your report and updating us on that.
You're quite welcome, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your time.
You have anything else you need to add, Janita, or?
No, sir. We discussed the last time
Okay.
about anonymous complaints and making
Yeah.
sure that people provide information and stuff. I just have to bring that little guidance forward to a couple of other boards. But no, I'm good.
Okay, great. Stay cool.
You too, sir.
Okay. All right. Pamela, you staying in for the meeting or?
I may hang around just for a little bit, yes. But other than that, I'll say see you now because I just might log off at some point during the meeting.
Okay.
All right,
You stay cool too.
I will.
All right. Old business, our task force working groups. First one was continued education, which is myself and Paul Costello and Richard Byrd. Would one of Richard or Paul like to bring us up to date on where we are? I know I've been not able to make a couple of those meetings, so it would be helpful.
Yep, no problem. Paul, you want me to start or you want to go?
Sure. Yeah, why don't you go ahead, Rich?
What we have done in our last meeting is we have updated the PowerPoint. We're about 50% complete, maybe a little bit, probably 70% complete with the PowerPoint, trying to go through and move things around, put things in better chronological order. There are a few things that we do want to add to the PowerPoint for the 2022 continuing education season. Other than that, we're hoping our next meeting will be August 20th as a task force. And at that time, we're hoping to have a final draft for review.
Okay. And Paul, did you want to add to that?
No, I agree. As Rich said, I think we're about 70% with the PowerPoint itself. I think we identified all the topics that we want to address quite a bit of information, that's for sure. Throughout. Now it's just a matter of kind of formatting it, make it look good.
Hopefully, this process we're trying to get accomplished this year for the 2022, continue that overall, will make it somewhat easier for the providers in that the curriculum will be all done for them. They won't have to really do anything other than understand the curriculum and deliver it. So,
Yeah, as well as keeping consistency between all the providers as well.
correct. So looking forward to seeing that as it gets completed. Statutes and regulations. We've submitted some items to the commissioner, and as indicated after, which we are after now the session, we're going to be meeting with the commissioner to talk about those a little bit more and hopefully get some changes made in those areas that are regulations first, and then possibly legislative changes next year. Still needs a little bit of discussion with the department on our requests, but what I've seen come back already from the commissioner has been favorable, and that's great. So as far as the John Usa, relative to your low voltage or limited license categories, a curriculum that you were working on, can you bring us up to date on that? And I know it's been a little bit difficult getting people together this summer, and everybody's had some pretty busy and difficult schedules. So again, I appreciate everything everybody's doing in the time frame we do have to get stuff done. So John.
Okay, well, I did get some feedback from members, and Peter Jennings probably provided, being that he does work full-time in the data low voltage area, provided probably the bulk of everything that I got, along with my own personal experience. The synopsis was sent to your attention. I don't know if we've had a chance to read it in detail, but certainly obviously your absence and input would be appreciated, definitely at this point. But the thing comes out that we're, as low voltage people, obviously working in an area that involves a lot of software and programming. And we are finding that people who have a computer background are getting into this area without a license. And of course, once it is physically installed, there is no license required for them to connect a laptop onto a piece of equipment and program. So at this point, they can subcontract out such work to an E1 or a C or an L class licensed person to physically do the work, which they would have to follow the National Electrical Code. So that's probably the biggest thing that's changing in the industry, is as long as these computer specialists decide that they're not going to get into running the cabling and do installation in that manner, things look for the near future, unless Peter wants to add anything to it, that it's going to stay pretty much as it is, that the T people, T1, T2 are telephone communications, and at this point, the people who are in the fire alarm industry are the C and the 5 people predominantly. And of course, the T people have no background in training to go into that area. So again, it's a little bit of, we're in transition, to probably put it in a good way. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Peter, do you want to add to that?
No, Larry.
Okay. That was just a no, Peter, because your mic was off.
Yeah, sorry about that, Larry. Yeah, no, nothing to add.
Okay, great. Okay. And yes, I did receive that information from both of you, from John. And no, I have not had an opportunity to review it, but I hope to be getting to that this week. And then communicating back with both of you on that, so we can try to put it into a final form. So, all right. Any of the board members have any questions about any of that? Any of the limited or unlimited licenses? Okay. All right. Moving forward, the new business. The application review working group, which consists of myself, Rich Hurlbert, and Todd Birch from DOL on applications. I can report the following: that in May, we looked at 12 new applications, 26 in June, 17 in July. And next week, we've got 12 to be looked at our next meeting. May and June, we did not have any reconsiderations, but in July we had 5, and we have 7 coming up next week. I think for the most part, the reviews are going pretty good and relatively quick. Obviously, people always are missing something, but once they get it back to us, they go into the reconsideration list and we review it again and give them the proper direction. Mr. Hurlbert, would you like to comment on how that group is going at this point?
On the application review group, you mean?
Pardon me?
Regarding application review?
Yes.
I think it's going fairly well. And Karen's created a spreadsheet. If there are license types in other jurisdictions that could be considered almost equivalent to ours, we do ask for OSHA 30 card, make sure everybody has that as well.
Yep. And Karen, and like you said, Karen really does a great job, Karen, on summarizing it for us. That helps make us go, excuse me, go through the process a lot quicker too, I think. So appreciate it. And as you'll note, board members, item B, what we've come up with so far is that we consider the Massachusetts Unlimited Journeyman's license along with the OSHA license, the OSHA 30 certificate, to be equal to our Connecticut E2. We still look at them, and occasionally there's something that sticks out, but for all intents and purposes, we're trying to come up with a chart, if you will, of comparable licenses that are equal to us in Connecticut. And so far, we kind of look at it that way with Massachusetts. So, and again, all it does is allow them to take the test. So, Karen, did you have your hand up?
Me? No.
Yeah. No. Okay. I just caught it out of the corner of my eye when I was looking
No.
back. Okay. All right. Item number 3 is the substitute House Bill number 6100, which is Public Act 21-37. An act concerning Department of Consumer Protection licensing and enforcement, antitrust issues, and the palliative use of marijuana and revisions to the Liquor Control Act. I think probably most of the board members have seen Bill 6100. Where it's pretty all-inclusive bill, covers a lot of different areas. And in the area that affects us at this point really are relative to contract with private residential property. And some of the requirements that go along with that. My understanding is that always was a requirement for contractor to have a contract with the owner of private property on the work he's doing, and allow them 3 days to rescind that contract and so forth. One of the new items in particular in this bill is section 23 of it, which is scheduled to become effective January 1st of 2022. And that is parentheses 6. And parentheses 6 says that the contract shall contain the name and license number of any licensees performing the work, provided the name and the licensee number of a licensee may be amended in writing during the term of the contract. So what that basically says is that, one, you need to have a contract with private residents, okay, with certain stipulations that are indicated in section 23. Name of the contractor, his license number, et cetera, so forth. The detailed description of the work, of what's exactly being done, the agreed upon the dollar value for it, et cetera. The problem I see with this, and maybe Pamela might be able to answer this part, is that I understand in looking at the documents that came out that says each change in the terms and conditions of a contract specified in subsection A of the section shall be in writing and should be signed by the owner, contractor, or business. This is where I'm not clear, and I'm surprised I didn't see this, except that the commissioner may, by regulations adopted pursuant to chapter 54 of the general statutes, dispense with the necessity for complying with such requirement. So, am I correct in reading that the commissioner can waive any portion of this new section as an example that we're talking about? Do you know if that's the case, Pamela?
Yes, that is the case. However, I will let you know that there are amendments to that entire section. And you're gonna probably want to meet with Leslie. I think maybe Leslie has reached out, at least I know, to Chuck Appleby to talk about the amendments, because the way that it went in, the way that it was proposed, it was really for the enforcement, so that we know who's doing the work, the name on the contract. And it just kind of morphed into a little bit more. It was added along the way after my initial review. But it was modeled after the home improvement statute. So where there's a change order of a contract. So you're going in and you're doing an upgrade, but then they decide they want you to, change whatever it is. Then you have to agree in writing to a second change order in writing. It's almost like a second contract. And both parties have to sign. That's the intent for that part, because that's what is as listed in the home improvement statute.
The reason I'm raising the question about items number 6, relative to the name of the person or persons performing the work, is that, to me, that's an added burden being placed on the contractor, and I'm not so sure what value that gives in our case, in our situations, and because somebody may contract today with a contractor to do an upgrade, as you said, and they list somebody down there as the mechanic doing the work. they can't get the work started for 2 weeks, and 2 weeks down the road, all of a sudden there is no, that person is no longer available because he's assigned to another job, or he's on vacation, or he calls out sick. And I see, yes, you can amend the contract and what have you, but particularly for a very small contract, that it seems to be a excessive burden. And I don't know what is gained by getting that information. The contractor himself, okay, should be having all those records anyway. So if there's a complaint or a problem, wouldn't, I don't know that's ever been done in the past, wouldn't the state then ask for a list of all people that perform the work? I mean, ultimately the contractor, the E1, if you will, is responsible for what his people does. So
it's a good point. However, you have like some of the larger companies, they're in people's homes, they're, call 24 hours. I'm not going to bring out any of those names because we don't necessarily have open complaints. But oftentimes they only remember the name of the company. They don't know who came into their home to do the work. And, God forbid, there's a fire now. So yes, you have a contractor of record. Or in another example, we have a very highly publicized case that is open and we're actually investigating, where there are no credentials in that situation for the work that is being performed by that company's staff. So the homeowners in our investigations can say, oh, it's, Pam was out there. Well, what's Pam's last name? I don't know. Then somebody else came back. Well, who was that? And then if you're not getting cooperation from the respondent who you're investigating, they get a lawyer, you're kind of at a standstill. So this way, we're not asking for the contractors to write up a new contract every time they do work. My emphasis was this is an invoice industry, that they don't always have contracts. You're called out on an emergency. You're not going to write up a contract. You're going to bill the person after the work is done. So that was our intent. Just mark somewhere on your invoice, this is, Pamela Brown and license number, and that's it. That's all we're asking for. We're not asking for every job to be, or I wasn't, I should say, every job to have a written contract before the work is performed. This is not how this industry works. We understand that. But like I said, it morphed into something else after my proposal. However, I can tell you that I know the changes are being made. So
okay.
I don't know where they are, but I have seen a draft. And so maybe touch base with Leslie or the commissioner.
Okay, yeah, and I will do that. I'll touch base with Leslie. I heard there was possible changes coming, and but I'd just like to get weigh in from the board, how the board feels about that in general. Anybody want to comment on the board from board's standpoint?
I would have a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Much of the low voltage residential security systems are put in within a day or two, sometimes a single day. And I think at this point, we have a contractor of record, license numbers already on paperwork that must be submitted and signed as an agreement. Sometimes keeping track of which employee, and you were right a few moments ago about jobs coming up that different people may change based on jobs, vacation, illness, whatever. I'd like to keep it to the point of still making the contractor the responsible party, regardless of who he decides to put on the job at that particular point. Back to you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Chairman, I'd just like to echo the same support for you. I think it puts a tremendous burden on the contractor. Both you and Mr. Yuza pointed it out. Scheduling wise, it creates quite a headache for a contractor to do it. And ultimately, the contractor is responsible for anybody employed under his under his license. So ultimately, he is the responsible party for all of that. I don't understand. I know we heard from Ms. Brown about the purpose behind it, but again, the putting license numbers on invoices, I just don't know, or contracts, I just don't understand what the the significance of that is. It seems like an additional burden on the contractor when it comes down to all that, because ultimately he is responsible, the contractor.
And sure, I can appreciate that. And when I say put the number on the contract, it could just be written in for that day. It doesn't mean you're printing it and you're getting new stationery. It's just handwriting, a handwritten next to his signature, because usually they're putting their name on the invoice and their credential number. So you know that we have the responsibility to investigate. We're going after, yes, there's a contractor of record, but then what if he has an unlicensed persons there? We have to, by your MOU, now look and say, okay, he had 4 unlicensed, people working. So we need to be able to charge him for that. We're going to charge the contractor of record, but we might also be charging those unlicensed workers as well. So we have the MOU that's there. That's our scale that we have to work from. And if we don't know who these individuals are, then we can't thoroughly investigate a case. So it's to help us, and it is no way an intention to burden the contractors. And like I said, we're not asking you to go out and get new stationery. It's just when they sign off on the invoice, just write their credential next to it. And sometimes we can't read those signatures, so having that number helps us with our cases.
Okay. Peter?
Yeah, if I understand Pamela properly, she's talking about more of the service call type time and material. My service isn't working. I have a problem like that. And if that's the case, then I agree with that, because I know lots of times in the service industry, they pick the closest person there who might not be, I'm talking about the companies that specialize, the closest person there to the job might be doing it rather than the properly licensed person doing it. So I think in the service industry, for the service call type of work, when you're writing up the invoice on the site, I don't see a problem with that. I think for anything contractually, I think it'd be very cumbersome, especially with a project that takes multi-years and things like that. But I think for a service industry where people are, getting service calls in, I think it probably work to everybody's benefit.
You bring up a good point, Peter. Again, the service industry, you get a call today, whatever, somebody's light fixture switch isn't working or something of that nature, and they send the guy over. I think in that situation, the mechanic or the person that claims to be the mechanic that's over there needs to just sign the document and indicate his or her license number. But on the other hand, if let's say a small contractor is doing a new home for a customer, okay, and there's multiple visits to that site to wire that building, to me that becomes a little bit more cumbersome. But again, as Pamela said, Leslie is looking at some revisions there and what have you, and I will contact her on that. But
yeah, and I agree with you on that, Larry. I'm talking more of the service type of industry where we have people doing those types of instances occur, which we all know they do.
Yeah, gotcha. Chris or Paul, you got anything you want to add? Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I was going to kind of echo with both Pamela and what Peter had mentioned. Looking at it on the service side, I kind of related to having HVAC work done. They send out a technician, and sometimes it's, I think as Peter said, whoever's the closest to the area. I've had an unregistered apprentice show up at the house and, question them for a license, and before you know it, calls the office, and all of a sudden a journey person comes within a half hour. So for that reason, I could see it on the service. I agree, on a larger scale project, it's going to be very difficult, with the journey person that's coming out. You don't know how many people are at any one time are going to be there. So I could see some of the concerns with the contract side of it. But as far as just putting a license number next to a signature, I don't see what that, I think that would be beneficial for us.
Yeah, in that case, I would agree with that too. Chris?
I'd echo what Paul said, but I really had nothing additional to add.
Okay, thanks. All right, well, I will touch base with Leslie anyway and see how that is being addressed. And we can discuss it again at our next meeting if need be. So, but I appreciate that input too, Pamela. It helps understand some of the logic behind it all. One of the questions I might have is, assuming some final version of this is developed, how will the department notify the contractors of this requirement?
So we will use bulk email. So just as it's the same email that's on record for the credentials, how we're sending out renewal notices, we'll send out a bulk email notice. And then probably go out to because it covers many occupational trades there. Also maybe some of the union halls and things like that, so that it goes out to all of the organizations and also to the credential holders through email. We have a lot of licenses, home improvement, homemaker companions that all have changes, and that's how we're going to notify people. We'll also put a banner on our website so that if someone happens to click on that portion of the website, there'll be like a sort of like an alert at the top of the page. There's already some that's on there now and active for the credential changes.
All right, and I think we can help also promote it, whatever the end result is, through our continued education.
Good idea.
When we're dealing with everybody, so hopefully can get resolved pretty quickly for 2022. We can add it to the curriculum.
Sure, and also the building officials, we'll make sure they know that as well. So I mean, we just put it out there to everybody. Everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
We do our best, but yes, if you have any other ideas, let me know.
Okay, great. All right, thank you very much, Pam, on that.
Okay, with that, I'm going to disconnect. I'm going to have a join in on another meeting. So everybody have a good weekend.
You too.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to add one more item under new business. It'll be C. I attended a plumbing board meeting yesterday, of which the topic is relative to water meter changes in residences. At this point, strictly residential. They are talking about developing a limited license to do that work. And in listening to the communications and also adding some questions I had in there and getting responses. Whereas originally I was under the impression it was only having to do with one town. It's actually multiple towns. And I also the impression it had to do with one type of meter installations, or one meter company type of installations, whereas it actually involves others as well. And I'm glad Richard's on here today too. The basic scenario is that they want to go in change by contractors, not by the utility company, go in and change the water meter in residence. And in some cases, there's a jumper already installed around the meter. In some cases, there is not a jumper installed around the meter. Where there's a jumper involved already installed, it's not an issue. But as we all know, that jumper needs to be there when you start disconnecting that water meter, because there's potential between the street side and the interior piping. one of the things they indicate, at least in this one company, is that they would put use a set of jumper cables in essence to jump out the meter to make sure that it's still maintained its continuity. Although our code does specifically stipulate that you can't rely on a water meter for continuity. Okay. And I'll tell you what section that is actually. Two. Oh, I had it here. I had it here, but I don't have it right in front of me right now. And along with that installation of the water meter, there's a low voltage cable run to the transmitter, and then out to a receiver outside. In some cases, sometimes it's a cable run directly to the outside, so the meter person just comes up and plugs his unit in there and reads the readings and so forth. So at this point, the way they're looking at it is the plumber can do all this work. Okay. And I can see where it's relatively limited amount of work, okay, from an electrical standpoint. And they are talking about in creating this limited license that there would be a class that somebody would have to take before they did this, got this license or certification. Back in 1993, this board, in conjunction with the Plumbing and Piping Board, held a hearing against Schlumberger Industries, who was actually doing a similar project. Okay, and it was determined then, as a recommendation from the boards, and I'll read you that decision. The joint boards, after hearing these matters today, offered the following recommendation regarding Schlumberger. If the complete installation of this system is performed by an appropriate licensee of either one of these two trades, and is then inspected by an appropriate licensee of the other trade pursuant to an approved and verifiable system of inspection, the work done by the licensee in the other trade will not be considered a violation. So my question here hi Leslie, glad to see you joining us. My question to I guess the department is, why wouldn't that decision made back in 1993 apply here in this case that they're looking at now, the situation they're looking at now? Rich?
I don't know, I guess Leslie can answer that, because as of yesterday's meeting, she told me when I was trying to speak that the department's not taking any position in this matter. So, and all those documents pertaining to that whole case, et cetera, were forwarded to legal division for their review. So I believe Leslie got them as well.
Okay.
Except I don't know where she went. Well, maybe she's here someplace, it looks like. She's in the panelist list, but I don't see her on the screen yet. Oh, she says help in chat.
Right, I'm gonna put her back in. She was in there as a panelist. I'm not sure what happened, but she's Are you with us now, Leslie?
And she
I'm
is,
here now. Sorry, I have a new laptop and it's different. Sorry. So I have a little challenge. And so anyway, so Richard, of course, is allowed to speak. So funny, Richard. But we just wanted to clarify that a lot of this language is being like sort of negotiated, and we don't want to. Richard obviously is a subject matter expert who has a lot of ideas, which is great, and I'm glad he's able to help you guys. But I just wanted to make sure, you know, the governor's office is watching this. We have both the Senate Majority Leader and a high-ranking senator in the Senate Republican caucus. Both have towns that are impacted by this, and so we just need to be mindful of that as this proceeds. You know, the towns were clearly, you know, with the contracts that they had entered into with these out-of-state contractors were in violation of the law based on the fact that they weren't using installers that were properly licensed, or they weren't going to be, because since the projects never started, I don't think. So that's a real issue that needs to be addressed. But there's a lot of pressure from those two municipalities to either have us look the other way while contractors violate the law, which of course we're not going to do, or for the law to somehow be changed. And as that process plays out, we're here to help support you guys with, and Richard obviously has ideas about language, but you know, the governor's office hasn't signed off on anything. And if somehow there's a breakdown on this and they end up during the next session going back and forth with language, we don't have the authority as an agency to sign off on language like that. So that's my point. That's what I was trying to clarify in yesterday's meeting that Richard's referring to. And so, you know, we can talk about process, timing wise, what it takes to get this over the finish line, if it's a regulatory change versus a statutory change, what the current law says. You know, we've pushed, you know, Paulette has done a great job of communicating with East Lyme and Norwalk to let them know that this work requires licensed workers. So anyway, that's the situation, just to clarify. And yesterday I clarified on that call, just during that meeting, just that, you know, we just had no authority to sort of sign off on language.
gotcha, right, no, I follow that. Yeah, you know, obviously my concern is from an electrical standpoint, from a consumer standpoint, that if you get into a situation where, let's say in relative to the bonding jumper across the meter, and it doesn't exist, okay? Do you walk away from it and let the violation still exist? Or do you get it corrected by doing the rest of the work? I mean, we're talking about a simple little jumper with a couple of clamps. So I'm concerned from a overall consumer standpoint, and you know, the mechanic, whoever's making that physical change of the water meter. I'm not as concerned about them running a short piece of low voltage cable up, although in one document that was submitted, they indicated that low voltage cable would be tie wrapped or taped to the pipe, which you don't do that, obviously. So I wanted to bring it before the board, but I was also raising the question, Leslie, of because we did have that prior case in '93 with Schlumberger, that do we not have a process in place anyway?
Richard, do you want to speak to that, or? Richard?
Yeah, well, I had disseminated that case, that board, the joint board, plumbing and piping and electrical board, to legal division, and Paulette has it, et cetera. So that's where one licensed trader or the other checks each other's work. That was to get that job done, because those meters were connected to a telephone interconnect system. They would dial in, I guess, in the middle of the night to people's homes and get to read it off the meter. So that was a little bit unique, I thought, back then in '93. So, I mean, that's another scenario, maybe can work, maybe. But I don't think that's what they want. I think they want something different,
Yeah, I think the explanation from their lobbyist, Betsy Guerra, unfortunately, she doesn't have all the I'm gonna say the technical aspect of the information that we're looking at, both from plumbing board standpoint and electrical standpoint. So
Yeah,
I guess we gotta do is see how this. Go ahead, Leslie, sorry.
So I'm sorry. It seemed to me from yesterday's meeting, what was good about yesterday's meeting is the agenda of CWWA was, I think, clearer than it's ever been throughout this process. But it's also, I think, clear that what they're looking for is something more than simply, municipal residential water meter replacement jobs. Like it's pretty clear that they have members beyond municipalities, and they're looking for language that does more than just address the situation that we're dealing with East Lyme and Norwalk. And so my sense is that that's what's happening here from where I'm watching this play out. And it will be interesting to see how this back and forth language plays out. And I'm glad, Larry, that you were there yesterday, and because it's really important for your board to also be involved in this.
Yeah. So I guess the point is here, our board's aware of it now, and I was brought into it, and I think we just have to watch it as it starts to continue to evolve, however it, and in what other manner, shape it does. And I feel strongly that the department, Leslie, will keep us informed as it moves forward, if need be. So she doesn't have much of anything else to do, so she can watch the water meter.
Oh yeah, I'm not doing anything else.
Now you gotta learn how to use that new laptop, so.
Right, I do have to figure this out. It's a problem.
So, all right, anybody have any questions about that? I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. I guess not. Okay, good. Okay, I don't believe we have any correspondence. Again, does anybody else have any comments or concerns from anyone else that's present today? Yeah, it looks like, is that a buy or I do?
No, I do. I don't.
Okay,
Sorry, that's if you guys are good with it.
Nope.
So I'm sorry I was really late today, but anyway, I just wanted to talk about House Bill 6100, Section 23, which has been an issue that's come up. This is the section, you may recall, that addresses contracting standards, tries to have standards for when contracts are written. There's some issues with the language we've uncovered as we've been working toward figuring out ways to come back to the boards and say, here's how we think this should be implemented. When we've done that, as we've been going through the language, we've realized that it needs to be fixed. There's some issues with it. So we're working that through. So, the effective date for this is not until January 1st. We will be in touch to give you an update at the next meeting, but no worries. We are, our goals are to make sure that we consult with you about implementation, first of all, and secondly, if there are challenges because the language needs to be amended, then we will let you know that as well and consult with you about the amended language before we proceed next session.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's pretty much what Pam alluded to earlier. And
oh, good. I'm sorry, I missed Pam. Sorry.
And I know you were working on some of that stuff. We'll sit in a holding pattern waiting for you to get your stuff put together on that, however it comes out with everybody. So appreciate that.
Larry?
Yes, sir.
It's Richard. There is someone maybe he's on, but Evan
He-
Dantos, it looks
Yeah.
like it's panelist somehow. Maybe Karen can help. I don't know.
Yeah, he's in as an attendee. His name is Evan Dantos, and you can let me know if you would like me to let him speak so that he can introduce himself or see if he has any comments or concerns at whatever time's appropriate.
Sure, and Leslie, you're all set right now, I assume?
Yes, I'm all set and I'm gonna take off. It's great seeing you all. Enjoy, try to stay cool out there today.
Yep, you too, thanks. Yeah, what was his name again, Karen?
His name is Evan Dantos.
Evan.
Can you
Dan-
hear us? Okay,
Yep, okay.
he's muted right now. He should be able to.
Evan, can you hear us there? And if so, you need to unmute your mic so we can hear you. Mr. Dantos, are you able to hear us? And if so, would you unmute your mic so you can address the board? Were you able to communicate with him before?
No.
Karen, were you
So
able
he
to
joined
communicate?
about halfway through. No, he joined about halfway through the meeting, so I was waiting to, we got to a point where we could address him. So I don't know. He was just observing or what it is.
Paul? Did you raise your hand?
I did, Mr. Evans with Robinson and Cole. He's attended meetings in the past just as an observer.
Okay,
Yeah, I
that's why the
couldn't
name
remember
looked
where he was
familiar.
from.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so I assume he doesn't have anything to contribute, just is observing. So,
Probably just observing. Yep.
all right, well, we're going to be closing the meeting here, Mr. Dantos, and I apologize if we shut you out of it, but we don't mean to, but we're not able to communicate with you right now, so. Okay, does any other board member have anything else they want to bring forward today to discuss? Good. All right, well, that's the case. Let's let the meeting be adjourned at 10:05. A motion to adjourn. Mr. Byrd, Mr. Costello. Nobody objects to that. All right, thank you, everybody. Hey, Karen, I sent you a couple of things today in the email relative to hardships.
Right. I got
Okay.
it. Thank you. Yep.
Yep. All right.
Okay, I will stop the recording.
Yep.